more and more and more lived experience from all diasporas of the external child welfare system. There is one thing that I do have a request, guys. We don't have very many men coming on the show today. We got a little bit for y'all. I'm excited, but we have heard that people say like, "What about the boys in foster care? What about the men? Why don't men share their experience?" And I'll be honest, a lot of people, a lot of men specifically, don't share their experiences uh, because of society and the way society looks at trauma and the way society kind of shames men for speaking about things that happen to them. I talk about it on my podcast a lot or on the live a lot, specifically SA. Men don't really report SA because as soon as you do, it's, oh, that's, you might be gay. Ain't nobody gay. Okay. And every single day, if you guys watch me on TikTok live, they always say, "Oh, you're gay because you were harmed." But it doesn't make sense because I know straight men that were harmed and they're straight, right? And vice versa. I know women that are harmed by women and they're straight or they're gay, or it doesn't matter. And this connection of trauma, I think it's also just trying, it's a way to shame people. I don't know why people think being gay is shameful because it's fabulous as fuck. But in society, it is something that they try to shame you for. So I do want to encourage more men and people who identify as men to share their stories. It is important. And the more that we share our stories, the more that we write books, the more that we have podcast episodes, the more that we can say that, hey, you're not alone. Because right now, what I'm seeing is that a lot of folks just think that this is a woman's problem in child welfare. Whenever we speak of child welfare, we talk about the moms and the babies and the adoptive mothers. We rarely speak about the dads or what happens to men or boys in these systems. And it's my personal belief is that it's because there's shame attached to it by society, where men are supposed to just pick yourself up, tough up, man up, just keep yourself, pick yourself up out by the bootstraps and like keep pushing. And I think this is so fitting because June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I do understand that a lot of men are trash, y'all. I understand. Women, I'm with you. But even the trash sometimes need to be cared for, which is why we have recycling. Okay. Let's recycle some of these men's mental health, okay? And give them another chance at a new form of life, okay? As a new product. But no, on a serious note, men's mental health is important. And for all of our safety, it's important. There are the people who are making decisions and trying to control our bodies. And maybe if they felt like they had control of their own bodies and their own decisions, they would try to control less of other people. I think it's all connected, but I think that it's important for us to share, which is why I'm super excited to introduce our next guest. But before I do that, I want to make sure you guys are leaving a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I want to make sure you guys are subscribing to us on Spotify and also making sure that you guys are subscribing to us on YouTube. We do the live recordings of the podcast every episode we make. So if you want to catch it live before it goes or any podcast, and usually it's weeks in advance. Honestly, y'all should be subscribing to that YouTube because you get to see the episodes as I record them. So that's really a benefit. And there's also a chat section in the on the YouTube that a lot of people like to just chit chat and talk about the stories that they're hearing. Sometimes I'll jump in there as well. But yeah, it's a really cool experience if you want to kind of experience the podcast differently. And lastly, make sure you guys are sharing with your family and friends, especially men this month, specifically maybe this episode. So without further ado, I want to introduce our next guest, Tag. How are you doing, Tag?
I'm doing just dandy today, actually.
Fantastic, fantastic. You were over there laughing. I was, well, did I? But did I lie? But did I lie?
Definitely did not, did not.
A lie was not told. So, Tag, just tell us about your experience in the external child welfare system. What's your experience?
Um, well, I mean, I started pretty young in the system. Um, but before I begin, I do want to actually kind of touch on what you just said there. I was always told young because of what I'd been through that, like, oh, you should not tell anybody, oh, you'll be treated differently. And then as I was like, I grew up and learned, it's like, I can't remember the exact number, but like 75% of men have gone through things and they
Mm-hmm.
just don't, they never talk about it. But in reality, if more of us would, we would have a much stronger community around just that specifically that would help us get through that. Because I feel like a lot of these things that are said today, like the toxic masculinity, bases from that, like men just trying to keep that in. And for me, I mean, I've got like almost every memory since 2 years old because that's kind of where it began.
Mm, mm. Me too.
But it,
People say, "How can you remember so early?" I said, "Trauma. Trauma will make your brain start remembering things real fast."
hmm And I mean, I guess that's kind of how I can remember my story so clearly. Just the amount of trauma. And I mean, I grew up like originally, like my original home. I'm the middle child of five. I'm the only boy. So I got two older sisters and
Wow.
two youngers. And from the get-go, though, we were like all like split and separated. I originally actually only remember growing up with my birth grandparents and with my oldest sister,
Hmm.
these two. And it was rough. The Lordy, where to begin properly with it? Well, I mean, my birth mother, for starters, was a single mother who had all five of us from five different men. So there's the implication with that. I never really knew my birth father. I think my sisters did. But the story gets to begin with one of my sisters accidentally wetting herself.
Oh wow.
That's that's literally where my entire story. That's where I consider like it broke from. Like it started right there. We growing up, me and my older sister would go to pick up my what I knew as my middle sister, the three oldest. We would go pick her up from my aunt and uncle's, where she would live. And one fateful day, we went to pick her up. Went to my birth mother's for visitation, and she wet herself. We were what I was, I think 4. She was 6 years old. I was 4 years old. So she wet herself on our way there, and we got there. Of course, we didn't want to bring her back without a change of clothes or anything. So my birth grandparents left her there. And on our way back, we went back to my aunt and uncle's, and they were like, "Where is she? Where's Bridget?" Oh, we had to
Mhm.
leave her. She wet herself. Yada yada yada. They went ballistic. Shit, like I'm pretty sure my aunt came at my grandparents with a shovel.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the car just being like, "Please don't hurt grandma. Let's go. Let's go. Let's leave." And my sister just sitting there like holding me like, "Oh no." And needless to say, that night, uh, dark night, the Child Protective Services showed up. A black car. Grandparents gave us big teddy bears, two big teddy bears, and the longest car ride of my life.
So it was just that one fight that caused the removal? It was that
That
bad of a
was
fight?
that was the breaking point. My birth mother was she was on drugs, drug addict, and she was so deep into that lifestyle that everyone kind of knew that like she can't take care of any of her kids. She shouldn't have any of her kids, but she still wanted to see us. So my birth grandparents were like, "We'll bring them to you every once in a while so you can see them." But the rest of the family, because I believe that was her sister, I want to say. They did not like her, did not want the kids around her, and I want to say they might have had some kind of custody over my sister Bridget, but
Mhm.
I'm not entirely sure. But as far as I can remember, I mean, there was one, I guess you could call it an incident before then, but it had nothing to do with Bridget. It was with my oldest sister. Her name is Whisper, and it happened probably a year before that event actually happened. We had a little campfire out front, and I threw a shaving cream bottle into the fire as like a 3-year-old,
That's
and
dangerous.
it exploded, and the bottom of the can came off like a ninja star, went between my sister's legs and sliced open the inside of her thigh, like a massive gash, just completely cut open her leg.
Wow.
Yeah, huge scar, still has it to this day. The little growing up as because you tend to grow up a little fast when you're in the system going through things. So I always held a lot of like shame for that, just like, oh no, I scarred my sister, I hurt my sister. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I was a kid. I mean, I had no way of knowing.
Yeah, you're 3 years old. Someone should have prevented you from throwing a shaving cream can into a bonfire.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, these are things that happen in the trailer park apparently. But The part though that brought all my memories to the surface though, other than the CPS and that incident, the very first memory I have is from when I was 2 years old. We had my grandparents and my Bubba Lee who lived with us in the trailer home. And I would crawl around just on the floor, into his bedroom, into his bathroom. And at 2 years old was when I saw my first Playboy magazine and
Wow.
can remember it.
Wow.
Yep. So from a very young age, I kind of already knew what like sex was pretty much, and that did not help. Did not help the situation.
So it kind of explain your experience from 2 to 5. It's hearing like you were with your grandparents for a little bit, and then CPS got involved. What happened after that long ride with CPS?
Um, so I went to my first home after that, which I do not remember a single bit of my first home. Apparently it was with a relative. Lasted only like 2 months. Didn't work out for some reason. And got removed from there. It was my second home that I first remember, and at this point, it was kind of like the visitations where I'd see my sisters. That's what it was more for than like my birth mother, because I don't remember if she ever showed up for a single visitation.
Wow.
Yeah, from the get-go, from the beginning, she was just very absent. I I don't think I ever saw my birth mother again since that day. To this day, never seen her.
Do you know where she is?
Yes, I do. I do. She's actually in the south part of Georgia where I stay. She's
Mm.
hours and hours away. I believe she got arrested like 3 years ago for a big drug bust that she was involved in.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that first home was a different kind of trauma. Um, Experienced a lot of neglect, like the truest form of what it means to truly be neglected. And I think a lot of people will like not they put a different meaning to that word. Oh, you're not giving me attention. Oh, you're not doing this for me. Oh, you didn't buy me the shoes I wanted.
Hmm.
This was a neglect that I've never experienced again in my life, where it was a single mother. She had two daughters and a son already living there that were her biologicals. And she always worked. So we'd either have a babysitter or the other siblings would just take care of each other. And I would see her on occasion, but to be like a 5 year old and to not see a parent, and you just have your siblings who are all in the same age group. I was almost drowned in that house.
Wow.
I almost bled out one time in that house, and I was like assaulted and sexually assaulted multiple times in that house. But there was no parental guidance there. Like I remember Matt. He was the oldest son, the older, kind of I guess call him foster brother, but he was the older son. I would hide under cars trying to stay away from him because he was just such a bitter, mean guy, and he would bully me, pick on me, push me. I remember one time, first time ever getting the wind knocked out of me, I was jumping on the trampoline and he just at the mid height like just pushed me while I was jumping and flew off, hit the ground, and just wind gone. Just hid from him ever
Oh my
since that
goodness.
day. They had a pool, almost drowned in that thing once. But what really ended up getting me in that home was the sexual stuff because I knew what it was. I knew what sex was. Like it was a thing that you could do, and like adults enjoyed doing this activity, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the morals and values behind everything there.
Hmm.
And it was very easy at that time for my foster sister to take advantage of that.
Mm.
And because there were twins, the older and the younger. Like, well, you had Matt, and then you had the two twins, but one of them was kind of like an older than the other. And the older one would like bite me and also pick on me like her brother, but the younger one didn't. And it just never seemed like a bad thing at the time. And then, but needless to say, she started doing small things here and there, getting in the bathtub with me, helping me clean, taking me to the bathroom all the time. just normal things until that day she was like, "Hey, let's go under the bed." I had plenty of room under the bed to do things.
And how old was she? And how old were you?
I was 5. Looking back on it, she had to have probably been 7 to 10.
Wow. So that means that she was exposed to something pretty bad
Had to have
then.
been. Yeah. Like, that was my, like, because I mean, I can't contact these people again. I can't go back. But just from what I can tell, like, something had to have happened.
Hmm.
But needless to say, we ended up under the bed with our pants down, as kids shouldn't. And somehow I don't entirely know how, but we got caught. Like it just, I mean, it's a good thing, but I never understood how that happened. Just got found out, I guess, and got dragged out from under the bed one day. And of course, the daughter was, oh, yada yada. He told me this, told me to do that, and I'm sitting here like, I am little boy. I don't know what's going on. And yeah, that was my first time being moved, but I was actually I was thankful. I was happy because at that time it was like I'm of just pure neglect. I mean, no one's taking care of me, no one's feeding me, no one's giving me time. I'm
Hmm.
just hiding, running, trying to survive. I'm pretty sure I was living off of like candy at that point. Yeah, and then to the next home, which is kind of ironic in my mind that like I went through only 3 homes overall between the ages of.
Really?
Mhm. I
Oh
was very
wow.
lucky with that. Between the ages of 4 and 6, 7, 4 and 7, I believe it was. Might have been 6. Might have been 8. No, it was 4 and 6. Yeah, 4 and 6. 4 and 6. The second home though is the one where it all went out the window. Everything just. Am I allowed to cuss?
You sure are. This is an
That's
explicit podcast.
okay. Good, because that's when everything went to shit. I This is the home where I remember the most, and the most happened to me. I grew up. I moved from that home at Miss Annette Tate's to, or no, from Miss Patsy to
Oh,
Annette
I had a
Tate.
Miss Patsy too.
You did. Oh yeah, I remember actually in your book you did mention that. I heard that and I was like,
Hmm.
oh my lord.
He said, "Oh my, was it the same as Patsy?" No.
And then I was like, oh wait, no, 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 it's different side of the country.
Hell, they be moving just to abuse more children.
I tell you, sometimes. But the yeah, at that point is when I got moved to my what I remember as my second home, but what I'm told is was my third home.
Hmm.
And this is where kind of like I like to say like to understand this is where my conscience kicked in. Like this is where I went from a kid to an adult. Like my brain switched and I could finally understand things. Finally understood now like what actual like what sex was and how you can get in trouble for stuff like that, and understood what it meant to be neglected and to try to have a family. I was excited, I was hopeful, and I was moved in with a single black mother out in the hood, the projects and stuff, and heavily medicated. And that is when I forgot my name, which was rough. I The system forgot my name, and Miss Annette Tate, she gave me a new name. And for the longest time I was Gus. Just
Gus?
Gus. Gus. Yes.
Just Gus.
Just Gus, nothing else. But I grew up as Augustine, being called Augie.
Mm.
Somewhere between those 2 homes, someone just dropped the ball and I lost my name. And for the longest time, I was just going by Gus. But I was such a timid little kid because this home was a little house, like 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and my room was very small, concrete, one little window with bars on it way up there. An
Wow.
old an old like space, not even a space heater. It was like those radiators, the one with like the slits, runs
Hmm.
water through it. A bunk bed, and that was it.
That's a prison cell.
Yeah, it was pretty much a prison cell. Small backyard, huge field beside our house, and then all the projects. And because I'm ADHD and was a hyper little boy, they put me on everything. And I was like a zombie,
Hmm.
just kind of going through the motions. and Miss Annette Tate was Pentecostal Christian, which I mean, nothing wrong with it, but there are extremists in every group. Just like there are wonderful people in every group, there are some people that just take it a little too far.
Mm-hmm.
And she was one of those people to the point where I was beat 3 times a day religiously.
Mm-hmm.
Got to beat the evil out of you. I wasn't allowed to celebrate Halloween because it was the Devil's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember actually being pulled out of school because our pastor lived across the school, across the way, and she would come pull me out of school, take me to his house, and whoop me, and then send me back to school. 3 times a day, like clockwork, for a year straight, with everything: belts, spoons, rags, studded belts, you name it, I've been beat with it.
Wow. No kid should have to go through that.
No, not that level of beating. And I had one birthday there when I turned 6, and that was the first birthday where I watched someone else celebrate my birthday. I had
What? Oof.
yeah, we had like four little. She got me just like four little cupcakes, and those cupcakes were given to her two little nephews while I watched through a crack in the closet because it was I can't remember if I was about to get beat or if I had just been beaten, but it was time for me to go away while the kids celebrated and ate. Never saw those. Like I never ate those cupcakes. Saw them, didn't eat them. Yeah, didn't like turning 6.
Mm. So, how you were there for a year, a little over a year,
Slightly over a year.
and then you went to your third and last foster home.
I actually that was my third home.
That was your third home.
The second one that I could remember, but the third one overall. So
Okay.
like the first home, I don't
You
remember
don't
at all.
remember much. Okay.
Yeah, I was apparently there for like 2 months.
So, and then clearly TPR had happened because at this time you're visiting your siblings. Did you visit your siblings during the time that you were in these homes?
I did during the first home. I did like see them, but during the second home, they one of my sisters like got sent really far away, and then I just never I don't think I was either I wasn't taken or I just never saw them. Because I remember seeing one of my sisters a couple times while at Miss Annette Tate's, but it was also kind of one of those situations to where it's like she was extremely controlling and didn't let me do anything, go anywhere, see anybody.
Hmm.
So from that point, I don't remember having much contact until my adopted parents started doing visitation with us.
So how did you how did you get introduced to your adoptive parents?
So they went through a third party agency. They didn't like go through no, they actually went through the state, not a third party agency. And it was a really funny story for them because my mother, my adopted mom, I consider her my mother, my dad, but she wanted to adopt 3 kids, siblings. And for like 2 years, every so often, she would go to my dad. What about these three? What about these three? What about these three? And he was like, nope, 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 not doing three, not doing three. And then one day he was out working on the car. She comes out. It's like, what about these three? Yep. And just like that, they decided to start coming down and spectating. I guess you'd call it. Like they were looking at us like through mirrors, like the one-way mirrors.
Hmm.
And they they fell in love immediately, they said, and then they took us on 2 or 3 little like visitations, and it was really sweet because like they brought us scrapbooks with like the family and everything and all the puppies because they owned a farm, and then they like had embroidered bags and book bags for all of us,
Oh, that's nice.
and mine said Gus on it. And my two sisters, when they got in the car, because I was picked up first, when they got in the car, they lost their minds. His name's not Gus, and he's like yelling at our to be adopted parents. And they were like, "What?" And they looked at me and like, "What's your name?" And I literally just went, like looking at my sisters. I didn't know my name. I didn't know who I was.
Wow.
And then my sister like was like, "His name's Augie," and I was like, I'll take that name. And
Let's
they were
take
like,
that
well,
name.
yeah. They were like, what do you want to be called? And I looked at her again. Because, I mean, at that point, my oldest sister, Whisper, was my mother. Like, that's how,
Mhm.
like siblings latch on like that,
That's how
especially when
my
we've been.
sister was too. Yeah.
And so, like, being separated like that, she, we had a really bad habit when we were like first adopted, like where I would save my food and not eat and just keep bringing it to her. And it was like we have to take care of her so that she can take care of us. That was a hard habit to break, but that's when I learned my name again.
That's
And
awesome.
the turning point. So the process. It takes a while, but
Hmm.
if you're persistent and push and force things, you can speed it up. It's just a really hard fight. Well, they found out that Miss Annette Tate was trying to adopt me, and they left me one day with her, and I was sitting on the front steps, and she was smiling and waving as they left, and I was sitting there just crying my eyes out, and she literally was like, "Stop crying right now, or I'm gonna beat your ass." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And like I couldn't even cry. I literally could not be a kid, and that was when the first like few times of actual like abuse, like sexual abuse, actually happened. Because I mean, you're in the projects, you got a lot of kids running around and unsupervised, and one of them, uh, he was good at scaring me,
Mm.
and was able to, well, to put it in a interesting way, I guess. He was able to talk his way into my pants, or me into his, really.
At Mrs. Tate's or with your adopted
Yeah,
family?
no, at Mrs. Tate's.
So, like, explain that. Like, how? What do you mean by that?
So there was another little black boy. He was probably 14 or 15, looking back on it, and by this point, because of my previous home, I knew what sex was and that we don't do that as kids. Like, oh, this
Hmm.
is against the rules. I get in trouble for this.
Hmm.
Well, this boy would come over to our house all the time, and we would go play in the backyard where there were like three trees that like grew perfectly with like a little area in between you could stand in. So it was like a little privacy right there almost. Well, needless to say, it was you're going to do this, or I'm going to tell Miss Annette Tate, and she is going to kill you.
Mm.
So you have to do what I say. And that went on for the majority of the time that I was at that house. And until the end, until I was about to literally be adopted, and he found out. And that was when I got the worst beating of my life because he decided to go into the house crying and telling her everything that I had done to him.
Mm.
And I got one hell of a beating that day.
So
When, of course,
I bet you resonated with my first book a lot at the Miller's house because that sounds just like the Miller sons. Like they're just manipulative. And then
yep,
and then the whole time they just knew the power that they held. And all they had to do was like tell or make up a lie and then we would get beat.
yeah. When it's like, I'm 6 years old. What could, what would I know about this? What would I know about engaging in this, starting this, or continuing these types of behaviors? I mean, I was 6 years old, 7 years
Mhm.
old. So it's like, yes, kids can learn and do not smart things at a young age, but at the same time, like some adults, it's like they don't read, they don't look into the situation. It's like you're gonna
Mhm.
have like a 14, 15-year-old boy come to you and be like, "Oh, he touched me," and then you've got a little 7-year-old here, like, "Hi."
That's not how that works.
No.
Like that's like that video. I sucked dick on accident. No, you didn't. Like
Oh, nah.
right?
Anybody
Like
do that
you
on accident?
I had a client and it's a similar situation. He was 10 and he was abusing his 6-year-old brother because he was a victim of abuse. And I was talking to him one day and he was like, "Oh, well, my 6-year-old cousin forced himself upon me." And I said, "You're 10. He's 6. He doesn't even know what this is. He did not And then I said, "So you're saying a 6-year-old who's half your size, may pull down your pants? That's not how that works.
No,
That's not how
no,
that works, right?"
nah,
And I told
I
him, I was
don't.
like, "You're just gonna have to be honest because, we gotta get you help, but, like, we need you to be honest, and where did this start? Where did you learn this?" And then that's when we, opened up and be like, "Okay, there's been a lot of past trauma there with him, with other adults," right? And
Hmm.
unfortunately, some children will re-victimize other children, and we really have to be hyper vigilant about that, right?
Yeah.
So to protect the kids.
Mhm.
So your parents, so after that last beating, what initiated your adoption to be like kind of rushed?
So my adopted parents, pretty much had came back for a visitation and found the bruising, like
Mm,
pretty much. There were signs, and then I was, of course, like I don't leave me here, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. And that was the day they left, and I was crying my eyes out, and I told them like, please don't leave me. And they saw me, like, of course, after they were leaving, losing my shit, and they decided then and there, like, we're not waiting, I'm not staying in that environment, and that they had to get me and my sisters out of the
mm,
environments that we were in. Because I mean, my sisters, of course, had their own traumatic events to happen in their foster care systems,
mhm.
and yeah, it was shortly after that we actually did. I believe it was like I can't remember the exact timeline on it, but I believe there was like an illegal visit that we had actually, where they took us to their lake house or something for like 2 or 3 days. But
Okay.
yeah, no, they finalized it shortly after leaving me that day because
And
apparently
then how was your new life with your adoptive family?
it was a change. Like I was saying earlier, the first few months, maybe even years, were very different for me because firstly, I went from not having any kind of stability whatsoever to having stability. But then I also had to kind of relearn how to be a kid.
Mhm.
I was already older, had seen and done things that most kids shouldn't, and I couldn't relate. I couldn't fit in. I couldn't really connect with anybody in the because also one of the first things my adopted family did was pull me off of every medication, like immediately, just because I mean I grew up on a farm out there in here in Georgia, and their thing was, I mean, you don't have ADHD, you're just a hyper kid. Go run, play in the woods, climb a tree. So that's what I did, and most of my life was spent outdoors. I didn't have technology. I didn't do TV, video games. I was very much an outdoor kid. Grew up on a farm, um, running around and supporting my sisters because for the first year or so they had to feed us separately because
Oh.
we would feed each other and sneak food around and hide food. For some reason, food was a big deal of our childhood. I don't think I was fed right as a kid.
Yeah, that food insecurity.
Yeah. Um, but things were rough. Things were rough. My sisters had to learn how to have a brother. I had to learn how to have sisters. I was adopted with my two older sisters. I had two younger sisters though, who actually I reconnected with when I was 17.
Okay. And did your adoptive parents only just have you three? Did they adopt any other children while you guys were growing up?
Just us three. Birth mother, or no, not birth mother, adopted mother couldn't have kids. So it was their way of being able to have a family.
Mhm.
Although they did definitely take a little bit of a risk. They did do a 6, 8, and 6, 8, and 9 year old, with me being the youngest. So actually, I grew up as the youngest, not really knowing that I had two younger sisters.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, that was it. Just us three, but adopting three older kids, though, that was impressive on their part.
Yeah.
And the came with its benefits, though, definitely. Definitely worth it on that part. Like medical and all that stuff was completely taken care of. So like I was definitely able to get the help I needed. I entered therapy immediately.
That's
Spent
awesome.
I spent 10 years, give or take, in therapy.
So it sounded like your parents were really prepared themselves before they brought you, because they kind of waited and they knew that they wanted a sibling group of three. So they probably did a lot of work, in preparing themselves.
Yeah. Um, Now as being like an adult, I've gone through cynical stages and optimistic stages, and for a while though there was a little bit of animosity, I guess, even between my adopted family because my parents apparently for like the last part of my growing up years, like I didn't know they wanted to get divorced.
Hmm.
They faked their marriage for like 5 or 6 years just so that we could have intact parents. But when I turned 17, no, not right when I turned 17, but I was in boarding school at 17 because I was losing my mind, and they just got divorced while I was in boarding school. And when I came out, I was 18, and parents were divorced.
Mm. So what did you
So
do after 18? Did you go on to go to college? Like, how did that separation affect you? Did it affect you at all?
it did, it did. I actually didn't, I didn't graduate high school or go to college.
Oh, wow.
Yep, both my sisters graduated and ended up going to college, but I actually, I went through some really rough stages there because for a while I had everything straight and narrow. I was doing good, um, but I had a major trust and attachment issues. So it's like I wasn't really able to trust anybody or connect with anybody because firstly I'd been through so many different things and I couldn't understand emotion the same way as everybody else. But finally I ended up learning to trust and I fell in love as a young buck, as people do, and I got scared and cheated, lost her, and then lost my mind.
Mm.
Started doing started doing drugs, dropped out of high school, stole my car from my parents, stole the piggy bank, and drove from here to California.
Mm.
And then turned around and my engine blew up in Reno, Nevada. And I spent 3 or 4 months there trying to kill myself.
Mm.
Did not go well because I didn't have the support from my parents that had just broken. I just lost the girl that I loved, and it all just kind of came back and it all just slammed into me at once. Because at the same time, I was putting my children's pastor from the church that I had grown up in jail.
Mm.
The court case ended the day that I like ran away. He
That was
because
from your adoption? The pastor from your adoption?
so like I was adopted and raised in a local church. And then at the age of 15ish or 14, no wait, no, I was 15. Yeah, I was 15. At the age of 15, my parents wanted to find me a mentor. So they went to Bill George of the church The Orchard in Loganville, Georgia. And he decided to be, like, he agreed to be my mentor, pick me up, spend time with me, take me out to eat, teach me morals and values, help me with weight training, exercises, working out, lifting, stretching, and would help me take my measurements for like my body mass index around the neck, biceps, legs, chest. Well, never thought anything of it, never said anything of it. Then those stretches and chest turned it like stretches and measurements turned into a little like, oh, let me lift up your pants here to measure here.
Mm.
And it just kept progressing, but I never thought anything of it because kind of like how things were uh, in the in your book, like you went to that temporary foster home. I think it was.
Mhm.
I think this is the one, but yeah.
The
Uh,
Rovers, yep.
Yeah, he never did anything like crazy or inappropriate, like so I didn't think anything of it. He never really touched me until one day I was over at his place and I've always been a very tense type person because of all the trust issues and everything that happened and he was like, "Let me give you a massage to help loosen up your muscles. Let me help you relax."
Mhm.
And that massage went way too far. But still nothing in my mind that registered as inappropriate or that I need to tell someone. So I was like, I'll just let it be what it is. I guess this is what it means when you trust somebody and you're supposed to like engage with them. Well, needless to say, I went home that day and I was just walking around my house. My mom comes home. Hey, Mom, how's your day? Oh, it was good. I got a full body massage today. Oh, that's wonderful. Me too. Huh? Because, I mean, I was 15-year-old. And she was like, what do you mean you got a full body massage today? I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I was at, like, with Bill George. She's like, come here. Sat me down and, like, had me tell her everything. And I was like, there's nothing, like, what's the big deal? He didn't do anything. He didn't touch me anywhere or anything. And my mom was sitting there like, okay, yeah, no, you're defending this man. You don't understand. You were completely butt ass naked on his bed in his room, unsupervised by anybody. And I was like, yeah, you got a point now that I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
And before calling the cops or doing anything, we set up a GoPro camera, an audio recorder under a seat, called him, and it was like, hey, his dad's gonna be gone. Can you just come over, talk with me and my son, and then we can figure out what's going on here. Like, my dad doesn't have to be involved. Like, let's just talk this out. And he came over. We had those recording devices set up, spilled the beans on everything, told every detail. And needless to say, since we did this before contacting any authority or anything, we were considered working independently and not as like an assistant to the state.
Hmm.
So it was all admissible. It could all be put into court. And this the man got hit with the hammer. Perfect, like community member. Needless to say, like 30 other victims came forward.
Wow.
He was a high school football coach, so I guess that's where he learned the tactic that he used on me because he used that
Yep.
tactic on a lot of other boys.
It's always a pillar of the community. You can always rely on that. You can
hmm
always rely on that.
And I remember having to like close all my social medias. We weren't allowed to like we stopped getting the newspaper because the amount of backlash that I got for being a minor that couldn't have a voice and the name couldn't be posted. No one knew who came forward with these allegations. They just knew that the name couldn't be public. And I sitting in church between two people that I like cared about and had known most of my life and hearing them talk about how terrible this person must be that is accusing him of these things and how it is just such a terrible thing and how they're such a terrible person and how they would try to do this to someone so respectable. I had to stop going to church, had to cut off my social life, had to completely take a step back until
Hmm.
the day where court came and I was called to the stand and it was like everyone just kind of you could see it in their eyes like oh and it didn't go well. But he was charged, convicted, just came up for parole and actually just got denied.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, Tag, after that experience in Nevada, what did you do after that?
After Nevada, so I OD'd in Nevada and died.
Oh
And
my goodness.
yeah, it was rough. I think I was dead for like 7 minutes or something. Came back, and after everything had cleared my system and everything, because I took off running like a bullet, and I woke up the next day like under a bridge, of course, and there was a church group like giving out breakfast, feeding people, and I
Hmm.
was just kind of like on the opposite side of the bridge. They found me and was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I explained who I was and what was going on. They contacted my family back in Georgia, and that church actually came together, kept an eye on me constantly, fed me, clothed me, bathed me, put me on a bus, and sent me all the way back. And I was recovered by my parents from the bus stop, taken immediately to a hospital because I was skin and bones. I actually have one picture from there, like when they were holding me up on either side of them, and I'm in between them. And I'd lost so much weight, I was just pretty much a skeleton. And I spent some time there. Took me 2 years, give or take, getting sober. It was a rough fight. Um, Plenty of relapses as part of the process. Um, Got sober over the span of 2 or 3 years. Um, Being that I grew up in construction, I started to work on cars because I was like, I kind of already know how to do hands stuff. Started working on cars, stayed clean, started jumping around a lot, and Now I am a fully blown mechanic.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
yeah.
Congratulations.
I was able to.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. So I was able to definitely bring it back, um, and figured out who I was. I'm grateful for the therapy more than anything out there. I definitely am a huge advocate for therapy for anyone who's been through anything. Um, Even if you haven't been through traumatic things, therapy can still be a wonderful tool for anybody who wants to take advantage of it. Because I definitely learned how to manage, how to cope, and just how to overcome things and like have strength in myself to get through all these things. Um, but it also helped me understand that I'm not normal. I'll never be normal. I'm not uh I'm not your average Joe,
Yep.
but I am
And and that's okay too to realize. That's something that I think in my older age, I'm starting to be more okay with. Um, Ever since I was a kid, 6, 7 years old, I've always tried. I've had to be excellent, even through all the trauma. I had to, persevere. And I think sometimes perseverance is definitely a trauma response, but that idea of I'm never going to be normal. Like I'm always going to have different emotional responses. I'm always going to have different emotional expectations. And that can be just like daunting, especially in relationships or friendships where like I have a different expectations for my friends. And most people will be like, that's really just crazy for you to expect that of friends. But then they don't understand, where I come from and how I am guarded. And it does take a lot to get to know me. And when you do, I do have kind of like attachment issues. Like I'm very attached to my friends
hmm
and family and then also like my spouse. And now as a 33-year-old man, I'm just like, it's okay to be not normal. But also what does that now look like? Because I've gotten to a point in my life where the success no longer it no longer hides the pain and trauma anymore. Like it's like you can't run away anymore. I can't I keep doing I'm gonna do this project and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna run for Senate. And it's just like, do you want to do those things because you're passionate about it, or do you want to just keep making bigger and bigger and bigger projects that you have to do? You know you'll accomplish it and you know you'll do great at it because
hmm
that's just who you are. But that's also a way for you to just be like, I'm biding my time, right? From real happiness and real growth. And I don't know what that looks like because I always thought real happiness and growth would be, having a home and being successful and being quote normal, but that's not, I'm not normal. It is not working,
Nah,
right?
normal's a setting on the washing machine.
Right. So like I'm just like, so where does your heart belong and where does your heart want to be? And that's just like a journey that I think I'm going to start next year or maybe after my birthday next month and just start that next journey of my new normal, right? And I don't know what that might look like, but
Yeah,
I do know that it's okay not to be what society deems as normal. And
yeah.
that might even be with like I was just talking to a friend about how there's couples who because I was like, I want to take a year or 2 years to just travel the world by myself. And they're like, well, what about your spouse? I was like, what about him? Like, why do I they're like, I'll give him a phone call. Like, we're still married, but like that's another thing. Why do I have to change my entire life? Because I fell in love with someone, right? Why does that have to be the norm? That doesn't
hmm
have to. Why do we got to live in the same house? That doesn't got to be none of this has to be
Nah,
normal.
nah.
Right?
And that's
Right?
and that's what like this is one big thing for me. Like it irritates me. Is like I don't like being told how I should live or that you should be this way or that way. When I'm sitting here, like there's no two lives are the same. No two
Mhm,
people will ever go through the exact same situation and live the exact same life. No one is normal. Everyone is unique. Everyone is different, and there's nothing wrong with that.
mm-mm.
If I want to live one way and you want to live a different way, we can both live.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's been rough because it's like my oldest sister actually turned out to be into females and has been dating this one girl for like 6 years now, and it's been wonderful. But she is a little on the extremist side and has come to me several times and been like, "You should be gay." oh, you're definitely gay. It's just because of
Not
what
you
you went
should be
through in the,
gay.
yeah, it's like, oh, you, it's just because of the things you went through in foster care that you don't like guys. And I'm sitting here like,
Wow,
excuse
that's
me?
crazy.
Yeah, when I love everybody. I don't care who you are, what you are, where you are. I love everybody. And I feel like I probably would have turned out like polyamorous or bisexual if certain things hadn't happened to me.
Hmm.
But because of these things that have happened to me, it's kind of like the opposite. I can still love everyone equally and treat them equally.
Hmm.
But I'm just not intrigued by the male form. It's just not my
Hmm.
preference.
Yep.
And then I've had other friends who I've told my story to be like, "I'm surprised you're not racist." And I'm like, I
Where did
can't
that come
blame,
from?
yeah, because of Miss
Oh,
Annette
where
Tate.
there she was black.
Yeah, and
Mm,
then the first dude who sexually molested me was black. That home where I was beat constantly, and I'm like, nah, I can't judge her. That's one person. She was
mhm,
not right up here. That was one
mhm.
dude. Who knows what happened to that poor kid
So
that made him want to do that to me?
people try to do that same thing with me, my adoptive parents, like, "Oh, you can't blame all white people." I'm like, "I don't blame all white people. I don't think all white people are bad or evil, but I do know that a lot of them are racist, and most of them have internalized racism." So that it doesn't work the flip way,
Yeah, and I'm
right?
sitting there like,
Because I understand your POV is like, yeah, not all black people are like that, and there are
mm,
a lot that will be, but that's not systemic, right?
nah,
Mrs. Tate is not systemic.
nah.
Uh, Child abuse is systemic, so that's the norm. No matter what, black, white, Latino, Asian, they finna abuse some
Hmm.
children,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
they
that's
all do it the same.
they finna abuse some children, right?
Mhm.
But people always often ask me, that's why you go so hard against white people, and I was like, well, no, I go so hard against white people
Mm.
because they are colonizing mind, like they have a colonized mindset. They think they own everything, and then they weaponize tears in their stories.
Oh,
But I said, but I definitely don't think it's all. But we shouldn't be talking about all or not. It should be if there's enough, there's enough, right? And it's all
amen.
and it's all until there's none. Just like that's my idea when it comes to men. I don't think that every man is a violent predator, but I do know that most are. So I'm just gonna say too,
There's a good number of them out there.
right?
And
Until
now this. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
The third biggest change in my life that this has all had, that every time I say this, people raise their eyebrows or have a comment. Because I had to grow up so fast from so young. I am 26 years old. My my girl is 42 years old. I have a 21-year-old stepson and a 16-year-old stepdaughter.
Mm,
And I handle everything wonderfully. But people are always like, "You date a 42-year-old woman with two kids?" And I'm like, "Well, no one else has that same maturity level, that understanding." And it took a long time for me to learn that. Like, I can't really get along with my age group.
mhm,
They're all so young. And I'm sitting here
mhm,
like, to meet someone who's 23, younger than me, but clearly has that same level of just intellect and maturity and understanding of the world and the bad side of it.
mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tag, thank you so much for coming on the show and being vulnerable and sharing your lived experience. I ask every guest, what's one piece of advice that you would give to an adoptee or former foster youth? So, what's one thing you would say to a little boy that has gone through something similar that, or is going through something similar that you experience? What's one piece of advice you would give them?
Keep going, just keep going one day at a time. It it gets better. At some point, everything will just be a memory, and you'll be able to sit back and just handle it. Like, if you're in that situation currently, it will pass. And as time goes on, it heals all wounds.
I love that.
It it will pass.
I love that. Well, Tag, thank you so much for coming on the Word to the State podcast. I'm so excited to share your story. And thank you again for sharing it. And I hope that the listeners, especially y'all, share this with men, share this with young boys in the foster care and adoption systems, even if you don't know if they've been through anything. Because, like we said, Tag said 75% of men, that's 3 out of 4, right? 3 out of 4
Hmm.
men have been abused in some way or shape sexually in their lives. And I don't think we talk about that enough. And that also, like Taz was saying, that has, long-term effects, rather it be addiction, rather it be suicide, rather it be, attachment issues, rather it be um progressed maturity. Because, even though it's great that you uh are more mature, you shouldn't have had to be a 26-year-old feeling like you can't fit in with other 26-year-olds, right? Because
Yeah.
that also, I can see why people raise their eyes, like, what, you were more closer to her child's age than her age, right? But then
Yeah.
people don't understand your trauma, so that can also be something that can be hard to navigate. But that's not something that you chose. It's more so, like you said, it's your maturity level, because that forced maturity. So, light shiners, I
Hmm.
want to thank you guys again for being here. And like I say every week, always shine your light, because you never know who you might be guiding in a dark space. So until next time, you guys, always shine your light. Awesome.